All right, buckle up, sunshine. We're going on a mean adventure. If aliens landed on Earth tomorrow and asked humanity to explain itself using a single food, we'd probably hand them a mince and cheese pie if they landed in New Zealand. Think about it. Human beings looked at meat, then looked at bread, then looked at both, and collectively decided, you know what this needs? More layers. And honestly, it's been one of our better decisions. Today, the meat pie is everywhere. It's eaten in New Zealand, Australia, Britain, South Africa, Canada, the Caribbean, the Middle East, Europe, Asia. Pretty much anywhere humans have discovered flour and had access to something that once mooed, barred, clucked, or swam. But where did it all begin? Who was the first person to look at a piece of meat and think, I should hide this inside dough? Well, to answer that question, we have to travel back thousands of years, long before New Zealand, long before England, long before Rome, back to the dawn of civilization itself. And as it turns out, the history of the meat pie is really the history of humanity, because wherever people went, the pie followed. Around 8,000 years ago, people were solving a very serious problem. Food didn't last. There were no refrigerators, no freezers, no plastic containers, no Tupperware, and perhaps worst of all, no pie warmers. Early farmers in the fertile regions of Egypt and the Near East were beginning to grow grain. They learned how to grind wheat into flour, mix it with water, and cook it into primitive forms of bread. At some point, someone discovered that dough could do something remarkable. It could protect food. Instead of placing meat directly over a fire, they wrapped it in a layer of grain paste. The dough shielded the food from burning. It trapped moisture. It made cooking more efficient. And perhaps without realizing it, they created the world's first ancestor of the pie. Now, these weren't flaky pastries. Nobody was sitting around ancient Egypt arguing over whether butter pastry was better than puff pastry. These early crusts were rough, dense, tough, often barely edible. The filling was the important part. The crust was basically edible packaging. Think of it as the world's first lunchbox, or perhaps the world's first biodegradable takeaway container. Either way, the concept was revolutionary, and it wouldn't stay in Egypt for long. The ancient Greeks looked at this idea and thought, we can improve that. Which is a sentence Greeks seem to say about absolutely everything. Philosophy, improve it. Mathematics, improve it. Democracy, improve it. Meat wrapped in dough, definitely improve it. Greek cooks began creating recognizable meat-filled pastries. They used dough to encase meats and other ingredients. Hunters carried them, travelers carried them, soldiers carried them, and for the first time in history, the pastry wasn't just a protective shell. It became part of the meal. This was a major leap forward. The pie was evolving, slowly becoming the food we know today. But then, along came the Romans, and the Romans did what Romans do best. They stole a good idea, then spread it absolutely everywhere. The Roman Empire was essentially the internet of the ancient world. Roads connected vast regions, trade flourished, ideas travelled, and among those ideas was pie. Roman cooks became obsessed with pastry. They filled pies with beef, lamb, fish, cheese, seafood, game, pretty much anything they could get their hands on. Some Roman recipes sound surprisingly modern, others sound completely unhinged. Roman banquets occasionally featured combinations that would make modern chefs cry. But regardless of the filling, the pie had become a serious culinary institution. Rome spread pie making across Europe. And even after the Roman Empire collapsed, pie culture remained. Empires fell, kings came and went, civilizations changed, the pie survived, which honestly says a lot about the pie. Then came the Middle Ages, and things got weird. Really weird. Medieval Europe took pie making to an entirely different level. Remember how ancient crusts were mostly containers? Well, medieval bakers turned that concept up to 11. They created something called a coffin. Now, before anyone panics, this has nothing to do with funerals. The word simply meant container. And these containers were enormous. The pastry walls could be several centimetres thick. They were hard, dense, incredibly durable. Sometimes, The crust was so tough people didn't even eat it. Imagine buying a pie today and discovering the pastry had roughly the same texture as a brick. That was basically medieval pie culture. But there was a reason. These giant pies were food preservation technology. A medieval pie wasn't just lunch, it was a refrigerator. Meat would be sealed inside. Fat could be poured over the filling. The pastry protected everything from air. Some pies could remain edible for astonishing periods of time. A pie wasn't just a meal, it was an engineering project. And in a world without refrigeration, that mattered a lot. As Europe became wealthier, pastry improved, flour became finer, cooking techniques advanced, bakers became more skilled, and suddenly something incredible happened. People started eating the crust on purpose. I know, revolutionary. Pastry transformed from packaging into cuisine. The wealthy began commissioning extravagant pies, huge banquet pies, decorative pies, luxury pies. Some contained exotic animals, others contained elaborate artistic designs, and occasionally things got completely ridiculous. There are documented stories of pies containing live birds. Imagine serving dessert and a flock of birds explodes from the table. For medieval nobility, this apparently counted as entertainment. The pie had evolved from survival food into spectacle, a symbol of status, a demonstration of wealth, a culinary flex, and nowhere embraced this idea more enthusiastically than Britain. Britain and pies became inseparable. The relationship has lasted centuries, longer than many royal marriages. Over generations, Britain developed countless pie varieties: pork pies, game pies, steak and kidney pies, mutton pies, eel pies, pigeon pies. If it moved, chances are somebody put it in pastry. Pie shops appeared across towns and cities. Workers ate pies, farmers ate pies, aristocrats ate pies. Everyone ate pies. The pie became one of Britain's great democratic foods. Rich or poor, young or old, everybody understood the value of meat wrapped in pastry. And then Britain started sailing around the world, which meant pie culture began travelling too. When British settlers arrived in Australia and New Zealand during the 19th century, they brought many things, some good, some questionable, but among the better imports was the meat pie. The pie adapted beautifully to life in the colonies. It was portable, affordable, filling, easy to make, and perfect for hard-working communities. Bakeries appeared throughout towns and settlements. The pie became part of everyday life. But something fascinating happened in New Zealand. The pie stopped being British. It became Kiwi. New Zealand didn't just adopt the meat pie, it perfected it. And yes, that statement may start international arguments, but that's a risk worth taking. The modern Kiwi pie developed its own identity. Unlike the giant family pies of Europe, New Zealand embraced the handheld pie. A complete meal you could carry in one hand while making questionable life decisions with the other. It became the ultimate convenience food. Road trip food, worksite food, school lunch food, hangover recovery food, rugby food, fishing food, camping food, basically food for every occasion, except perhaps weddings. Although somebody has probably tried. Over time, bakeries became fiercely competitive. Every town claimed to have the best pie. Every bakery claimed to have the best recipe. Every customer claimed to know a secret place nobody else knew about. And from this delicious competition emerged the icons. Steak pie, steak and mushroom, steak and cheese, mince pie, and perhaps the undisputed heavyweight champion of New Zealand pie culture, the mince and cheese pie. Simple, reliable, beautiful. The Toyota Corolla of baked goods. But Kiwi pie culture didn't stop evolving. In recent decades, something remarkable happened. The gourmet pie revolution arrived. Bakers began experimenting. Slow-cooked beef cheeks, venison, lamb shank, butter chicken, pulled pork, seafood chowder. Pawa, wild game. Red wine reductions, ingredients that would have confused medieval bakers beyond comprehension. Today, some pies are culinary masterpieces. Others are still sitting proudly in a dairy warmer at 7 in the morning. And somehow, both are equally valid. because that's the magic of pie culture. A pie can be fancy. A pie can be humble. A pie can cost $30. A pie can cost $5. If it's good, none of that matters. For a few minutes, all is right with the world. Which brings us to today, thousands of years after the first ancient baker wrapped food in dough. Thousands of years after Greek cooks refined the concept. Thousands of years after Roman expansion carried pies across continents. Thousands of years after medieval bakers turned them into edible engineering marvels. The pie is still here, still evolving, still bringing people together, still creating passionate debates, and in New Zealand, perhaps more than anywhere else, the hunt for the perfect pie has become something of a national pastime. People will drive hours for a legendary pie. They'll argue endlessly about fillings. They'll defend their favourite bakery with the intensity of sports fans protecting their team. Because finding a truly great pie isn't just about food, it's about discovery, it's about stories, it's about finding those hidden gems that deserve to be celebrated, and that's exactly why Mean Pies exists. Mean Pies is built for pie lovers. It's where people can discover great pies, review them, rate them, share them, and help others find the next legendary bakery worth pulling over for. Because every great pie has a story, every bakery has a reputation, and every pie lover remembers the one that changed their standards forever. From ancient Egyptian grain crusts, to Roman feasts, to medieval castles, to British pie shops, to New Zealand bakeries, the journey of the meat pie has taken thousands of years, and somehow, unbelievably, the story is still being written, one pie at a time. So next time you're holding a hot pie in your hands, remember, you're not just eating lunch. You're participating in one of humanity's oldest, strangest, and most delicious traditions, and if you happen to discover an absolute banger of a pie along the way, you know where to share it. Mean Pies, the home of pie hunting in New Zealand, because life's too short for average pies.
Mean pies, cuzzy. Mean pies, my boy. Mean pies, cheer the bolts. Mean pies, my boy.